Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of our 4th Age Total War Harondor campaign. This is the battle for the settlement of Moran, which is south of the White Mountains, sort of northeast of Dol Amroth. It's a settlement that I had been holding off taking, just because it seemed maybe slightly far from my center of operations, might make it a little bit tricky to defend our southern Gondor possessions, but I think the opportunity presented itself. And since we're so close to victory, I figured, why not take it? Let's just jump in here. We do have a rainy day, but even though we've got a few archers, I'm not too concerned. So back behind us and to the right is the settlement. So hopefully, we're on the attack here. This is not an assault, but we're attacking a small army that is positioned outside the city. So this is where the bigger army and the reinforcements are going to come from, and we'll, of course, need to set up accordingly. So with that in mind, I think I want to keep the archers back a little bit. There's really not too much in the way of enemy ranged. So we'll do our usual thing of keeping the Harondor retainers back and in the center. And I would like to group up all of these javelin cav to keep them together. It is also typical, our horsemen of the Harnan are kind of light in numbers, but they're going to be our powerful lancers, and then backing them up we'll have the Harad riders, the scimitar guys. We'll group up this central portion. Now we're attacking, I believe it's just like 3 units of infantry, and they're probably going to be way up on the top of this hill, so this is going to be a little irritating. The reinforcements are going to come from relatively close to us, because the border of the map is right here, but because they're so close to that edge, we want to give them time to get away from it. I do not want them to think that we're going to swoop down and attack them, because a lot of times if you set up right next to the reinforcing army, they will just withdraw if they see you're in a very advantageous position. And for that reason, because we're sitting up on the hill here, I don't want all of my guys to be on the hill. I think I want to hide some cavalry in these trees, and we'll just do this. Let's see if they can all find a nice spot to hide. I mean, it's a little risky, because if the enemy gets too close... Alright, so these guys are hiding, these are not. If the enemy gets too close to them, they may see and get spooked. And obviously we don't want them to just retreat back into the city of Moran. Okay, there we go. They're all hidden now. And I'm just going to group them up for easy maneuvering. In case they get discovered, we can get them all out of there. And I think the javelins, we'll just keep them here. We'll see what they're going to do. Yeah. So we'll set up like so. Okay, they're farther away than I thought. So that's nice. I want to keep these guys hidden. Now, this army is larger than the one we're attacking, but they're similar in that they've got a lot of the low-tier stuff. So this is going to be, maybe it's all Kingdom Militia. Yeah, it's all Kingdom Militia. So we're doing them a favor by cleaning out all of this junk. I mean, to be fair, Kingdom Militia is a good unit. But if they've got no other infrastructure, that's the only thing they can train. Up here, we've at least got a couple units of swords. And that's going to be not a tougher fight, but it's going to be slightly more interesting, I guess, because they have better morale. So let's speed up the action here so we can get our guys in place. And I think I'm going to keep these cav right here. I think our 2 bodyguards can make work of everything that's on that hill. And all of these guys can probably deal with all of this too, to be perfectly honest. So we probably don't need to march everybody. But I'm doing this more of as a show, I think. You know, you get into this space where you're kind of playing mind games with the AI, and you're not sure if they're participating or if you're just a bit nuts. But it seems that if you kind of play this way, avoid these armies, they're not going to turn around and run too fast. And that's what we want. We want them to come on. We want them to engage with our forces so that we can defeat them and chase them all off the field before they route back to the city. So it looks like they are going to be uncovering some of our units. And we will have to be a little cautious about that. Let's see what happens. Once they discover this unit here, which they certainly will, they're going to react, okay? And they actually are going towards us. So let's get out of here. The 17 Lancers are not discovered yet. I'm going to run them up here. And you see they're milling around a bit. So, maybe I didn't want to put them in the trees. Maybe this was a mistake because it's gonna get them scared. You can see this is actually working out nicely. We're not going to have to move our entire infantry force up. I don't want to defeat these guys quite too soon because, again, we don't want these units to retreat. But we'll kind of move these guys back. That said, if they look like they're retreating, I don't think I heard the retreat. And again, this is led by our Great Conqueror, the general who took Minas Anor by assault. So, Fuinur, the Great Conqueror here. We should be totally fine. These guys are fresh. These guys are... Actually, they're doing a lot better than I thought. Still fresh even after that climb. Alright, let's just run down into the Kingdom Militia, and Fuinur can take out the swords. Our archers are firing. That's going to be helpful. And let's start getting our skirmishers down there. And let's actually turn these guys down as well. I think we should be just fine. I think we should be okay. Yep, there goes the Kingdom Militia. We've got to stay on them. Because we do need to make sure they don't get off the field. But I'm just going to hope Fuinur can just cut his way through all of this. Let's switch to swords. And yeah, we're already seeing some routing here. So let's run you down here. And I believe they're turning. Yeah, they're turning. So we need to go and get them. And we've got room. I don't know if we're going to make it. Right, so you're done. Let's go ahead and take out these other swords. I was a little worried about this, that we're going to turn this into just a pure cavalry rush against all of their spears. Let's see what we can get away with. I'm going to leave this guy, and I'm also going to leave those few units. I don't think they're going to contribute. There's only 7 of them. But we want to catch all of these units. Okay, how are you doing? Are we on routing mode yet? Not quite. They're holding out. As you can see, these swordsmen do have much better morale. They're wavering now. Okay, I think they're going to be okay. We do need to keep a watch on our cav. But honestly, we're doing quite well indeed. Let's go ahead and hit these Kingdom Militia. Let's hit you. And what do we have here? We've got 1 unit there.
He does not stand but runs away. Is there any point in killing him?
Alright, it's really just the King Swordsman. I'm going to pull out another retainer unit, but we got all of these guys on the run. There's only a single unit in the woods. I way overestimated these guys. So man, we should be able to get this city here. Yeah, let's just take everyone down. Make sure we get that captain. I don't think it's strictly necessary. All right, fantastic. Fuinur has taken care of it. And where is that unit? Right down here. They're going to rout before we get close, is my prediction. Let's see, wavering already. Yeah. All right, we'll just continue it, just to be totally sure. And, you know, I don't even know that we took that much in terms of losses. Let's see, where did we do a lot of the fighting? there's no losses down here, really. There's a few cavalry models littering the battlefield, but it looks like we lost 3 here, and that would have been the skirmisher cav. Another couple of lancers up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or so up here in this charge. Really not much, and you know, we maybe lost some of our bodyguard guys, but that was much better. So we didn't even engage with our infantry apart from archers taking a few shots. So granted that we have enough movement points to move into Moran, we should be able to just seize it. And that will bring us one step closer to victory. And a wonder. All right. Yes, we'll just go ahead and we'll get rid of that. We'll go back and take a look at the wonder information a little bit later, but that's always louder than you expect. So we've captured Moran. I think we're at the stage where we're just slashing our way through Gondor. Let's see what the Stone of Eric has to say here. Local people did not approach the Stone of Eric, believing it to have fallen from the sky and thinking that evil spirits dwell around it. The truth, however, is that it was brought from Numenor at its downfall and placed here on the Hill of Eric as a symbol of the might of the Dunedain. It was at the stone that Isildur collected vows from the King of the Mountains and his people in allegiance against Sauron. The vows were broken, however, and the men of the mountains were condemned by Isildur to an existence neither living nor dead until such time as they could fulfill their oath. The opportunity came during the War of the Ring, when Aragorn II summoned the Oathbreakers to fight for him on the southerly shores of Gondor. Always interesting to see this, you know, like on a clear map, right? Because in the books, I don't know about your experience of reading the books of Lord of the Rings, but reading about, you know, the paths of the dead, and then the journey up to Minas Anor that Aragorn and Gimli and Legolas took with the army of the dead. That always struck me as a much shorter journey, and it's because in the text it's described only in retrospect, really. There's a very brief part of the chapter, I think the passing of the Grey Company. I could be wrong about the name there, but you do see a little bit of it. It's like a page or so where they describe, you know, moving through these rivers, Aragorn and, you know, the dead coming behind him. But a lot of it is also told in retrospect from, I think, Gimli or Legolas or both of them at Minas Anor to the hobbits, I think. And because of that sort of disjointedness to the narrative, it always seemed like I don't know, sort of like a separate journey that I never got a good grasp on, I guess, on the scale of it, truly. And it is a pretty significant journey, and there were several engagements or, you know, mini engagements that occurred. And of course, it wasn't just the ghostly army of the dead that did all the work. There were other men of Gondor who joined in from all these little settlements. Anyway, seeing it on a map like this is nice because you get a sense of that scale, right? All the way from the Stone of Eric, down these rivers, down to the coastlands here, and up towards, well, up to Pelargir, right? They made it to Pelargir. And then up the river, of course, to Minas Anor. At any rate, we have taken Moran. And it's interesting to think about this, right? We've got, for the first time in a very long time indeed, we've got non-Gondorian rulers of this region. For the first time since, you know, early in the history of Gondor, I would presume, right? Because at the time Isildur was around, you know, extracting oaths from these mountain-dwelling people, they were not necessarily strictly under the purview of Gondor, right? I don't think Gondor had extended to the west until much later. We don't, I think, have secured dates for the westward expansion of Gondor. I've tried to look it up in the past. You know, at what point did Gondor have this part? At what point did Gondor get this? And I don't think it's very specific or very clear. You hear about the ship kings and their expansions, you know, along the coast, you know, west and south of the Anduin. But again, it's all somewhat vague. So at any rate, what we have here is, I guess we could say, not really a return to native rule, but maybe at least some of the people here who may have very extensive or, you know, watered down genetic links to the, you know, the people lived here long ago. Maybe they view us as liberators. Probably not. But we can at least lower the taxes for them and we can at least destroy these control posts. So again, this is somewhat limiting our ability to move around because we've got forces tied up in Moran, and this is another unwalled settlement. This is why I was kind of hoping to avoid having to take it, but the opportunity presented itself. So that brings us to 28 provinces of 30 that are required. I think what I will do here, we've got an army kicking around. This is just 4 Kingdom Militia units. We could take that out with probably 4 cavalry units. So I think what we want to do is move this army down to Lynn here. And we'll get on the ship, and then if I can remember, next turn, we'll bring them over to Harondor. This army is going to be just fine. We've got some swords, archers, light cav, you know, a mix of stuff. And we should be able to deal with these native hill folk, essentially. We've got Gondorian hillmen here. Just spear, shield, very light. And inside, they do have a medium cav unit. This is going to be Captain's Guard. That's their, you know, in some ways, like, it's not the faction leader, I guess, but it is one of the few leading units of some of the rebel factions that you see. So we'll take Harlorn. We need to take that for victory, and then it's just a matter of getting one more province. Now, we did assemble some really cool units here, Harondor Outriders, and I'd like to find a use for them, hopefully in this episode. So, with that in mind, let's just end the season and see if we get any immediate response to our taking of that additional settlement. And certainly nothing by the Reunited Kingdom. We've got another suitable husband here. Tribe of the Brazen Spear, that's a cool name. He is one of the Plainsmen folk, and he's, you know, pretty decent. So he's going to be, I tend to see the Plainsmen as better generals, even though they do have some of that trade income bonus. I just really hate seeing a 5% increase to construction costs. I probably should not be so exclusive about that. A 5% increase to construction costs can easily be overcome by other traits, by just having someone who's anything of a decent governor. But I tend to avoid that like the plague for my governor. So I would put him in command of an army. Again, it doesn't really make sense. He's short of stature. He's lazy. But that said, I don't think we need him. Let's go ahead and decline that because we've got a couple of these spearmen. And I think what I wanted to do is, I know we've got another one on the way, but let's take the 2 that we have. Let's grab the Harondor Armsmen and these guys and put them under Mutati of the City of the Corsairs. Now, I know that that means he's not going to be able to take over when this guy almost inevitably dies. Obia Julu of the House of the Singing Bird is looking a little aged here. But I think we can still deal with it, right? We've built pretty much everything we want to build in Umbar City. If we were looking for more cash and, you know, more sort of a longer term campaign, we could go with some of these things. But the reality is, as Harondor, you're playing a relatively short campaign unless you are, you know, really looking to try something. We do have some mercs here, but I'm not going to bother with those. Let's go up to Habad with this force. A couple of seasons, we'll be in the ships, and then we'll be able to move and just try to navigate the seas here. We do have some hostile ships in the area. Okay, nothing unusual there. More Swords of Harad and Harmen. More units in Dol Amroth, that's great. Akasanabon went with crop rotation for a little bit of income, and we gained almost 10 grand. Now, okay, Harad is moving up. They are certainly working on finishing, yeah, wiping out Far Harad. Now, I think we could deal with this with the forces we have here and the forces we have stashed in Carenbad. It was my hope at one point, you may recall, to try to get Harad into a protectorate state. I no longer think that is a possible option, simply because they've expanded and they seem to be fairly aggressive. They seem somewhat aimed in our direction, in fact. I'm happy to let this play out, I think. I normally hate to see factions destroyed, Let's see. Let's check the diplomacy. You know, they're at war with us, but they've been totally calm for quite a long time. They still have a war with the Reunited Kingdom, of course, and Rohan, but that's only on because of the nature of these two factions being in an unbreakable alliance, which means that the enemy of one of them is really the enemy of both. So that war is likely to continue. This war is going to finish very shortly, so, I mean, since we're still at war with them, I guess we could move down here. Let's do it. We get some different mercs, because we're in a different pool. And we can maybe do something with these units. I should probably have taken this scout. I've got literally one swordsman. Let's move the spy a little closer, see what we would be dealing with. Okay, I think it would be okay, although it is tricky. When you see these Parchereb tribesmen, it's misleading. They look like peasants. You know, they look like the same kind of skirmisher types. Or footmen or something, but they're tricky. They've got bows and they've got spears. That said, I'm really not too concerned unless there's a Mumakil somewhere in this army. Let's see what they've got here. Oh, interesting. They've gone cultic at some point at any rate. So they're training Spears of the Shadow now, which is a cultic-only unit. There's 3 or 4 units, I guess, that Harad can train if they convert to the cult. Very interesting faction in that regard. Typically, I prefer the native units for those factions that can switch. But Harad gets, you know, some decent stuff. They get swords, very heavy, very well-armed Swords of the Shadow. And I guess they get axes at specialization building. And they're going to get a unique cavalry unit as well. Very similar to the Scarlet Shields, which is nice. And they're also going to get Black Numenorians. So this is one of the factions that if you're going to switch to the cult, there are some very cool and thematic choices beyond just this kind of stuff. So it's nice to, at some point in the campaign, give that a shot, although you do lose some of the nice units that Harad gets, the flavorful local stuff. At any rate, I'm not seeing a ton of this type of unit. Yeah, they're still training a lot of the lower tier stuff. So, I think that'll be fine. Okay, he got our Notorious Brigand for picking up mercenaries. I guess we could bring these guys over into the east. They get a combat bonus in the deserts, right? We could show that we're Harad now. The only issue is this is going to take 1,000,000 years. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 turns. I don't know. We could get up in a boat and in like 2 or 3 turns be up in Gondor and at least maybe see some action. So maybe that's what we'll do. We'll wait. They'll combine to sort of take Harlorn. But now we can move these guys. Let's go ahead and get some Gondorian mercenaries. And let's just hit you, and let's pursue him again. I just want to get these guys on the field. We've got our typical Knights of the White Tree units, and we've got some swords, we've got some bows. I'm going to do this all with the Harondor Outriders. Just so we can get a nice show of how they function in battle. It's a unit that you rarely get to see. The AI is relatively slow to train them. In fact, I don't know if I've ever seen Harondor train that unit as an AI faction. The Reunited Kingdom can, possibly a Dunabar can. I'm not too sure. Let's take a look at them here. We are Harondor Outriders. Very nice. Slightly darker scale mail, I guess, or scale armor, something. And of course they've got javelins. They are skirmish capable, and they have swords as a melee option as well, as you can see just there, I guess. The scabbard for that. So a very nice sort of hybrid unit. Combat bonus in deserts, good to know. We're not going to be seeing any desert action with these guys. But reasonable morale is nice, and fast moving is also nice. Now, there are, I believe, several levels of fast moving, or at least there are different speeds that can fall under this larger category. So fast moving does not mean they are the fastest units in the mod. I'm I'm pretty sure that's the case. I'm not 100%. But I think if we were to pit them in a race against our skirmish javelins that we can train at the lower tiers, I think our mounted skirmishers would beat them in the race. So let's just go ahead and get this going. This is it's an okay matchup. One of the interesting things about this is we'll see how well these units do against arrow fire. Of course, they do have shields. That's going to give them a bit of protection. They've also got their armor, which the armor value is 13. Defensive 29. That's quite good. Not the best, but it's good enough. I think the idea with these units is that they are a kind of a medium cav, semi-mobile unit. You know, they're not going to be flitting in and out around the battlefield like the mounted skirmishers would. They're not a horse archer unit, and they don't have as many javelins, I believe, as the mounted skirmishers do either. But, of course, when they run out of those javelins, they're going to do very well. So, we're running into the border of the map here. We're just going to take some hits from the archers. I'm just going to advance kind of slowly. I'm going to let the archers do their thing. I'm not going to try to rush them. We'll just see how much damage gets done. One volley takes out 4. Oof. Alright. I've seen enough of that. So, we're on fire at will. But we're charging. And so feels like a pretty good effective little charge here. They're down to 23. Yeah, that's quite nice. We're down to 33 men. Let's get out before we run into trouble with those guys. All right, we'll focus on Knights of the White Tree. And they've got more javelins than I expected, actually. Still 32 men. So, despite the fact that we were under fire as we approached... Alright, there's the swordsman coming in. Let's head over here. And we're still firing, I guess, theoretically, but not taking any of these knights out. But we're doing very, very good at whittling down these king swordsmen. They're going to be off the field very soon. And we've still got some javelins, so let's move them up a little bit closer. Alright, and we spent all of our javelins but did not do anything with those Knights of the White Tree. Let's move over here. And let's actually change our targets. I'd love to get some hits. Alright, to take some of them out. Now, the AI generals typically have skirmish as well, if they're a cavalry unit. Again, this is intentional to prevent the AI from just sending its generals in a suicide charge. So they're still avoiding us here. But the fact that they're moving around so much is probably what's preventing our javelins from landing. Alright, let's take out those swords. Get that issue taken out. Alright, they're going after units here. That was not an effective charge for them. We're going to hit them in the back. Let's see how the swords work. Not too bad, losing heavily. You can see the swords seem to be single-edged. Not really curved. But they're gone. Wow. Alright, we did quite well. I mean, so we've got 28 in one unit, so that's the worst. And this was the unit that I think bore the brunt of that charge from the Knights of the White Tree. So that makes sense. Let's take a look at what we get in terms of healing. We only get 3 men back. I guess that makes sense. Most of your casualties are going to be healed if they've taken ranged fire. But there is no ranged fire except for friendly fire in this battle here. So Harondor Outriders, very nice unit. Worked pretty well. Of course, we had them outnumbered there, even just with our cavalry versus all of their army. But you can see how that worked pretty well in a larger battle. I guess the trick would be to kind of keep them... don't know if I want to say like out of the way. You don't necessarily need to keep them safe from other units. But I would try to reserve them for like a meaningful flank attack, if that makes sense, right? Where you're ideally you'd want to get rid of all your javelins, right? All right, let's go with one of these, and I think we'll just put this under siege. We'll go ahead with that. Inside, they've got a nobleman and another sword units. We may be attacked. If so, I don't know that I want to fight it because the terrain is going to be fairly unfriendly given all the forests. So we'll end the season here. Yes, indeed, we are attacked. Oh, this is Harad. Oh, fun. Okay. So they did not like us getting in their way. Great. So we're saving our ally, Far Harad, by fighting this fight in the desert. They're going to have to come to us. I think we're going to do okay. We've got a lot of cav skirmishers, not a lot of infantry, but a decent amount of the scary Southron skirmishers, those mercenaries, which are going to hopefully play a big role here. They don't have a family member leading them. The AI army does not. But we do, so that means our morale should theoretically be better. Let's go ahead and make sure we've got our one swordsman also on fire at will. Otherwise, everything looks fine there. I think I'm okay with the skirmishers leading, essentially. Okay, and we've got Harondor riders. They'll just be going wherever. Let's move you over here. Now we've got 4 and 4, one on each side, one block of skirmishers on each side. I think that'll be good. And they have to come to us, so let's go ahead and do this. They do have some archers, so we want to be a little aware of that. We do not have any. So this will be mostly cav. In fact, I should probably get my cav out and around so we can actually meaningfully charge. But you can see them, their front line is going to look a lot like ours. They got their desert skirmishers up there. Do have a unit of swords. And mostly footmen. Another unit of swords on the other flank. And then backing them up, they've got 2 and a little more of these Parchereb tribesmen. This is the general. So I could try, let's halt right here. And let's get our melee cav down closer, because I wouldn't mind taking out this unit. Let's charge them all in. Oh, that should be great. I'm going to eliminate this unit. This opens up our cav to this side. I'm going to distract some of their archers. And let's move our men down, actually, right about now. All right, we're getting a little ahead, but I think let's go with it. Ooh, this could be bad. All right, let's throw everybody in. Let's get our scary guys. Let's see how this melee is going. We've got our cav versus their cav. Footmen are charging in. We're doing well over here, but that doesn't matter too much, arguably. Let's bring our skirmishers around. Alright, bring mercenary swording skirmishers. We're going to hit those Harondor riders. What is this? Footmen. That should be okay. We're doing fairly well here. Let's go up and engage those footmen. This is going to be messy. Nice. Yeah, we've got them all on the run now. It's kind of crazy with these battles. It's not necessarily all that obvious how it's going to go, because we've got a lot of skirmisher, very light units. That should be good. Who's not routing, though? Okay, just them. There we go. All right, I'd like to take out those archers if we could. Now, at one point, we were thinking about taking Parchereb for ourselves. The difficulty would be, I guess, holding it. You know, because it's nice to have Caranbad and really nothing else to worry about. Parchereb, I feel like, would be always under siege, which is a little annoying to deal with. And it's a little far from everything else, too. So, let's just actually exit the battle here. I think we're good for the heroic victory. We lost fewer than 100 men. And really, the more important thing is we saved Far Harad for at least a few more turns. If that had fallen, Caranbad would have been potentially under threat, although it's currently accessible to Harad anyway. The bigger issue is, I think it's Adabara, which is a settlement below it and to the west. Okay, that doesn't matter. Let's go take a look at how that's situated. Because, yes, the province here of Anorlith, or Far Harad West, comes up against Adabara's settlement. And the issue with that, again, is that we would just have another place that Harad could easily attack. Let's go... See, this is very annoying. There's 11 men. It's a Corsair Marauder, though. Let's go see if we can take him out. Clear victory. Oh, nice. Very, very nice. So, what do I want to do now? Can I... Okay, there's a thing I can do where it's kind of cheating. I've never done this, and I've had it explained to me several times. If you know how this works, feel free to let me know again, and maybe I'll remember the next time I try it. But there's a thing you can do to get extra movement out of units involving ships. So I can bring these guys and merge them, right? Can I do that? Okay. And no. Now, why can I not merge these fleets? Oh, it's because there's a captain. Okay. Well, I guess that's fine. They're all on this fleet anyway, and we're going to send them up to Harlorn. We're going to see how well they work in the siege, and if they're not attacked, and if assuming they make it, we're going to send that ship along with this army to all meet up and take Harlorn out next time. All right, we've got some more outriders. We did lose a scout over here. All right, so let's immediately get another one going and take out. Okay, we've got some extras. Very nice. So I think what we want to do now is head back to refit. We lost our single unit of Swords of Harad. It would have been nice to bring him back to get retrained, but at this point in the campaign, I think we're fine. Let's get another sword unit out of the city. So that brings us up to 2. Maybe merge these together, and so we'll grab another footman unit. I think I'd like a little more in the way of infantry. Although theoretically, we could always just go with those mercenary spears. So what do we have? Yeah, probably archers would be good. We can train more, so let's just queue up a bunch of them. And because we've got... is he the king? No, he's not. So I'm not sure why he is showing that they only take 1 season to train when most of the time they take 2. Horseman of the Harnan, Harondor Armsman. This guy's getting fantastic bonuses to training time. All those units are like a 2-turn unit, so I'm not sure what that is. Maybe it's a trait. Maybe it's a governor or commander trait that's doing this. At any rate, I'll just take it. We'll train as many archers as we can, and then we'll see if they're going to pursue us onto our territory. They haven't so far, so I'm not too concerned about it, but that should be fine. All right, so we've done all the moving down there. Do I want to just take Cair Andros? How about it? Let's do this. We'll get the fancy cav out of here, and we'll just do an assault that is an auto-calc. And we'll take that fort and just occupy it. And let's just leave it with mercenary swords. Is that going to be enough? No. No, it is not. I should have slaughtered the inhabitants, apparently. Let's see. Is this going to help anything? Well, I don't know, but we may as well. Let's go ahead with a local trader. Actually, no. We can... are we going to have to destroy this? Let's destroy that. That's giving us nothing. Let's start building our own garrison farming. And let me check. Is it a public order? Yeah, the garrison could be much higher. We've also got alignment problems here because we are a Ways of Darkness faction. And so we've got both of these alignments causing trouble. But we could possibly solve this with just more men. Let's go ahead and throw in a couple units of spears. Yeah, fine. And I'll throw you back. So now we're at our 29. We should be at 30 very soon. What I may do is just stand threateningly on the bridge here, right outside Minas Ithil. I don't know that I want to take it or besiege it even, because I'm just going to be attacked and then I'll have to fight it off, and that'll be a little annoying. If they want to attack me in such a way that it causes me to potentially be able to take it without an assault, fine. But I think we need to move, or be prepared to move, for Harlorn next turn. Alright, nothing happening. We do have some forces, yes, approaching from the west. Celebrimbor of the Hills of Evendim. And this is where the difficulty comes in, because Moran is totally unprotected, right? We would have to potentially lose it if I stripped the garrison down and brought good units to take care of this problem. On the other hand, I may not need good units, right? I've got some guys already in Dol Amroth itself. Assuming they go for that, I think I'd be good. Just holding it there. If they don't go for that, we could maybe do something else, right? Like maybe we could take these guys out and bring them down to defend Ethring or Tarnost. So I guess it depends on what they do. But this is also the turn when I'm hoping to take Harlorn and potentially finish the campaign. So Pelargir, let's just, for the sake of completeness, right? Like do our Outland Dominion, do our due diligence there. And some marriage celebrations, a new coming of age or birth. Okay, great, and we're still making money with that. So now let's get our armies together. And how do we want to do this? Let's disembark right here. Okay, and we're right next to the city. This is going to be maybe less than ideal, but our army is small enough we should be able to merge both of these. Okay, great. And we can even do a little bit of cleanup here. Okay, that's fine. I wanted to retrain them, but that's fine. So let's do this. We'll attack Harlorn, and we will assault, and these guys should show up as reinforcements. Wall-less settlement, so this should be totally fine. Balance of power, very much in our favor, but this is a chance for us to see the Retainer Spearmen in action. It, of course, you know, this should be, assuming I've done my math correctly, should be the final battle of the campaign. And, of course, if we wanted to go longer, we could try to find some other settlements to take out and just avoid taking this one. But as you know, if you've been following this particular series, we probably could have won quite a bit sooner. But I did want to wait for some of these units to come online. So we're coming from here. The reinforcements are probably going to come from the left. Let's take a look at these units before I forget. So, yeah, the Retainer Spearmen. This is very obviously, it's the same unit as the Spearmen of the Serpent that's available to Harad at, I want to say, Tier 3, possibly Tier 4, though. But this is it's got different textures, more in line with what you would expect with Harad. Not only are the colors slightly different, so they're not that Harad red, but also the skin tone of these guys better matches what you're going to see north of the Harnan River. So some really nice little work here to distinguish them from the typical unit upon which they are based, still giving a sense of flavor to the faction, but also calling back. It's sort of like a signal that we've arrived, right? Like we are Harad now. We don't have elephants, but we don't need them. We've got these glorious spearmen. We've got our wonderful archers. We've got, of course, the guys who can really carry your campaign as Harondor, the Harondor retainers. I will say that these guys can do a fantastic amount of work for you, just by the fear effect, by their speed, fantastic charge. And of course the cavalry, right? We've got to get one last nice look at our plainsman-mounted skirmishers who have just been so important for us throughout the campaign, as well as these Harondor riders. I tend to, I think I've underrated these guys for quite a lot of my playtime, whether playing as Harad or Far Harad or Harondor, because, you know, these are the more unique units, and then you've got stuff like the Harondor riders, which I don't think we have in this in this battle. The Lancers, the heavier Lancers, if you've got the Scarlet Shields. But those Harondor riders, light guys with scimitars, just having enough of them really does make a difference. So let's go with this. We've got our archers up front. Let's actually move the other ones as well. And I think all we've got in here actually is going to be a single unit. So let's do a cavalry charge. Let's do that. It's only going to be the captain's unit, the commanders. And so here we've got two on this this lonely island in the mouth of the Anduin here. We've got some Haradrian buildings, because this begins in the possession of Harad, actually. And they lost it to a rebellion at some point. So we're going to just take it back. We're going to get our family members up here. Ferran the Hunter, I guess he's the guy who's been doing a lot of work in Gondor, right? And we'll bring the rest of these units over. So the reinforcements, again, are going to come from pretty much straight ahead. We'll just get these guys grouped up so we can easily move them towards the city. And then the rest of this is our cav. No real need to keep them separate from each other, I think. What we could do, though, is actually, yeah, let's do this. Let's make it a bit of a interesting fight. Let's send all of these units with one bodyguard over here. And their goal is going to be to destroy the reinforcing army before it reaches the city. We've got the other family members who are going to charge in and destroy the captain. So this is going to be just a sudden attack. Just going to give that charge order. And the rest of the infantry are just going to rush into the city too. All right, did I have my positioning correct? Yes, the reinforcements are somewhere off in the distance there. So let's get our cavalry right there to intercept. You can hear the hooves moving through the streets. And this is just going to be a messy scrum in the plaza. There's not going to be a whole lot else we could do. We could wait, I guess, bring our archers up and pepper them from a distance, but may as well just get this going. Let's go ahead and switch to swords. Yeah. Taking just a few losses, but as you can see, this is a relatively light unit. Very similar in model to the Dale Riders and some of the units that I think Dunland and maybe even Rohan can train. All right, now we've got the city. We could just wait this out, right? They are taking their sweet time getting here. But as we can see, we've got these hillmen who, if they get to the open country, I will run them down with cav, but they may not get there in time. Let's halt, speed up the clock. You know, actually, I'm okay. I'm okay with making this a proper end. Instead of just running down the time, I'll get my guys a little bit closer. We'll bring the bodyguards out so they can take part in this too. And maybe Ferran the Hunter can go down swinging his sword here at the close of the campaign. I guess we'll get the skirmishers out. Back them up with the Harondor riders. I don't want to do too much fighting at the tree line. I'd just rather not. It's kind of frustrating to try to see what's going on. But yeah, some of them are going to maybe make it a run for the plaza. See if they can defend the city there. Here we go. And we should do a lot of damage. Even though these guys do have a shield, it's not going to be enough to protect them from all these javelins. They're obviously going to get tired as well, trying to run after our cav. demoralized by taking these javelin hits. And then they're going to run into our actual cavalry here, some of which are going to cause morale debuffs by themselves. Winded and shaken already. You're getting hit on the flank. I would expect some of these units are going to rout before they get engaged, but we will see. Let's send the bodyguard out, and let's send the Harondor riders out. See how they do. Alright, pretty much instant rout here. You know what? Let's run up to the tree line with the other cav. And let's get our javelins around to the side. Let's move like this. And let's bring the other guys up this way. Alright, Harondor riders can hit this unit, I think. And let's leave the skirmishers to go here. Yeah, these guys are going to route towards the plaza, but I think our infantry are going to take care of it. Alright, let's go around to the end, and let's close the formation. Yeah, these guys are in a bit of trouble now because there's, what is it, just one unit. Still, the numbers are very significant. But with all of this routing, I think we're going to be just fine. We're not losing any men yet in terms of generals.
Like a frightened child. Now attack and break the will of his followers.
All right, Faran the Hunter, let's go back down here and charge into this mass. But we will wrap it up.
These men are perfect.
So we'll end the battle there and see what the victory screen looks like for Harondor. So this has been a good campaign, I think. You know, the thing that I'm surprised by here at the end of it is just how well we did. I'll talk about that a little bit more after this pops up. Yes, you have prevailed over your enemies. The Principality of Harondor is now the ruling force in Middle-earth, and all will shake at her presence. Fantastic. So let's, yes, resume the campaign here. You can see some of our bodyguard units in the distance there, and there's, of course, the flag of Harondor. Let's lay desolate, as is our wont. Okay, so with this, we have taken our 30 settlements. We've accomplished all we need to do. And this is the thing. Harondor is a relatively, close to the vest kind of campaign. You don't have to do very much conquering too far afield. And the conquering you do have to do, the most challenging aspect of it is taking Umbar. But this is also the key, I think. You don't want to take Harlorn first. As you see, I saved it for literally the very end of the campaign. Going for Harlorn early, even though you may think it's a great way to open a war with Harad, I've done it in the past, and the Reunited Kingdom tends to go for it. And so you may end up at war with them sooner than you like. I like to try to hold off war with the northern factions as long as I can. And so I don't want to have to keep defending Harlorn. The other thing about Harlorn is, as we can see, this is not going to be a homeland for us. And the infrastructure is really bad. This is still a minor province. It may even be lower than this when the campaign starts. So if you take it too soon, it would be just the development is very poor. I don't think it has a market. I could be wrong about that. I think these things are both built by Harad in our absence, as well as the road camp. Animal husbandry is definitely not there at the beginning. So you've got a harbor, and then you've got very little else, if anything. And this would be an outland for us, too. So it's tricky. If we lower the taxes, that's what that would look like. But I think this is a fairly typical end game for Harondor, right? Your number one job is absolutely to go for Umbar. This is the harder job by far than taking Harlorn, but it needs to happen because you're not going to survive with Harad to your south. At least I don't think. Maybe it's possible, and I'd be curious to see if any of you have tried that, tried to make friends with Harad. The challenge there is you start in an alliance with Far Harad, and if Harad doesn't go for you, they're going to go for them. So I guess what you could do is drop that alliance, right, and just try to forge a relationship with Harad. But I don't know if that would be successful. It is possible, as you've seen, for Harad to get into trouble in the east, right? They tend to sometimes do some conquering over here and do very well and start getting up into Khand. And around here, they tend to founder or flounder, whichever. They run into trouble. They have a hard time holding these settlements in this area. So that could be very good for you if that were to happen. The problem is all of this land is incredibly wealthy for us as well as for Harad. So if you don't take it, they're just going to develop massive armies. And I've just been burned so much in the past by letting Harad get big. Sometimes you have no choice. You're playing a faction that's very far away. But seeing a big Harad in the mid-game is very disheartening if you intend or need to do some conquering down here. So definitely lightning strikes at Harad, well-timed, served us very well in this campaign. They have for me in the past. And Harondor, I mean, it's funny because looking on the map, when the campaign starts, you would think that they are really an underdog, and they are. But if you can do it right, it's really not that difficult of a campaign. I know that if you can do it right, there's a lot riding on that, of course. And if the AI works out right, if factions do things that work to your favor. But nevertheless, the battles are a lot of fun, and you can be extremely effective with focusing on Cav the right way. So Harondor, very fun campaign. It definitely feels tricky in the beginning, but once you start to get a hold of this territory south of the river here, south of the Harnen, I think you've got it made, right? Once you start to break into and really be able to hold regions in Umbar, not even necessarily Umbar City itself, once you start to realize, okay, I can hold Habad and Karas Nan, you've got it at that point, I think. So that's Harondor. And then as for the north, you know, it's tricky because I don't think you would want to go much farther this way, right? All of this is going to be very hostile to you. With Gondor, I think it feels like a more natural place for you to conquer, right? The idea is that you are somewhat of a hybrid faction. You're able to enjoy Men of the West buildings to an extent, at least some of the benefits from those. So that means you can get into a place like Gondor, and it's not too far from your homelands or from your capital, most likely. But once you get up north of the White Mountains, if you were to go into Rohan or Rovanion, I would think that would be very difficult for you to hold. And then, of course, there's the question of borders, right? Where do you draw the line? Is it up here? I guess you could have the Mering. Is this the Mering Stream as your border to the west of Anorian? That could work. But minus Honor, I mean, nothing beats this as a capital, or at least as a shield to the north, which is why I waited so long to do anything else around it. And I also will say that the other thing to learn from this campaign, the thing that I'm learning is forts are great even if they don't actually completely wall off access, right? So Minas Anor, the Reunited Kingdom could have come down here and just besieged Minas Anor at several times. But they didn't, and I think that's because they've got the fort here. See, they've got the movement to just move right down through here past the beacons. But there are forts nearby, right? And so I think the AI sees those forts as a bit of a threat, especially when it's on its own territory. So that can be useful, sort of setting up a net, I guess. And it's something the AI tends to focus on. As you can see, they did besiege our fort to the west or to the east of Osgiliath here several times. So let's now remove the fog of war. Something I always like to do at the end of a campaign and see how the other factions are doing. So Rohan, not too much different actually. We knew Rohan had crossed the river early on. They haven't gone north of Fairfeld, which is typical. The elves still hold Lorien and Amon Lank, and the Bjornings still hold the Vales of the Anduin, which is great. They've captured Gladden Hold and the High Pass Stronghold, which they do not start with, but they haven't made any other strides. They've still got Holt. They did take Thrimfeld, and actually they are moving against Rovanion here. Let's see what their diplomacy looks like. They're at war with the Rovanians. So yeah, the Bjornings are only at war with that faction. They're allied with Rohan, which has probably served them very well. Allowed them to hold on to this southern territory of theirs. And they're allied with Rune, too. So at some point, Oh, they also have Rovanos. Wow, good for them. Very interesting. And so they must have taken this from Rovanian. Rohan, on the other hand, seems to have struggled. They accumulate a lot of enemies over the course of the campaign because they're locked in this alliance with the Reunited Kingdom. And so that means that anyone that the Reunited Kingdom goes to war to with, Rohan will as well. And if that's a faction that borders them, that's going to make things very tricky. Now, I think I would have thought they would be doing better than this. But Tharbad is doing surprisingly well here. So again, Tharbad is at war with all kinds of people, like all of its neighbors, all of its human neighbors anyway. The Adunabar in the north, which surprisingly still has some of its territory up here. Well, actually, no, I should not be surprised because the faction still existed even though they have nothing in the south. So this is really just 2 provinces, 3, Rivendell. So their capital is that Graham? Yeah, the mountain hold of Graham is where Adunabar is limited to in terms of their capital. They've also got the northern hold. They've also got Rivendell. Now, the thing with Adunabar is they may have taken Gundabad at some point. I'm sure they had Carn Dûm at some point. But this is a very rebellious place, very difficult to hold. And of course, Adunabar did have all these 3 settlements at the start of the campaign, but it looks like they lost to the Reunited Kingdom and also the Bjornings, who are actually doing surprisingly well. They not only captured the High Pass, they moved right over it to grab Lastbridge, which is awesome. That is a sort of an interesting way to think of the Bjornings, as controlling the roads and the trade routes, right? That's sort of what we imagined them doing in the Fourth Age. They've got the Old Ford here, sort of controlling passage across the Anduin. They need to, for their victory conditions, grab the High Pass stronghold, which of course is another important nexus of trade routes. Not really trade routes in the sense of you're going to make a lot of money with this province, but it's important for controlling passage over the mountains, one of very few passes on the map. And then Lastbridge. This is a really nice place to take. As you can see, it's a chief city, right, with that blue banner indicating as much. And it's at a very defensible position, not too far from the Bjorning capital, but we've also got just this bridge and just this crossing right over here, right to the southwest of Rivendell. Those are the only 2 ways you can get at Lastbridge, apart from the High Pass stronghold. So you can have this locked down very, very effectively. So good for them for taking Lastbridge. I always like to see them breaking out. But it looks like the Dunlendings are just about to be eliminated here because of Tharbad. It's just crazy how much Tharbad has done in terms of making enemies. Now, maybe a lot of that was not their fault, but I'm surprised to see them winning against the Dunlendings. Dunland has, in my experience, just a stronger military in two ways. One, they've got a ton of javelins, right? They've got some very interesting units. So their military capability is very good, very varied as well. But 2, it's incredibly cheap. And they've got the population number 3, I guess. So Tharbad would really struggle, in my experience, to raise a large and efficient military that can take out all of the armies that Dunland can throw in. Just the attrition rate is going to be abysmal, fighting those kinds of battles against those light javelin men. But they've done it. They've managed, probably with the help of Rohan occasionally, to do that, despite the fact that they are at war with Rohan, which is probably the only reason that Dunland is still alive this late in the campaign. Although, when does the campaign start? 364, 356? 356, I think. So we've been, we're coming up at like almost 80 turns. It's been almost 40 years, so almost 80 turns of play. That's not too long. And of course, we did go for the short campaign. What else do we have going on? It looks like, the Reunited Kingdom, as expected in the north, has held on to its territory and made some gains, getting up to, they may have at some point held Rond-la-Soth, although it doesn't look like if they did, they haven't done any building there. But they're probably going to take it fairly soon. Otherwise, we've got the dwarves where you would expect, the elves where you would expect, and the Shire untouched, at least for now. And that is no doubt because there's still wars being fought in Eriador overall. Elsewhere, yeah, we knew Rohan. I think we knew that Rohan had got captured down into here, Cowan Druin, the old Pukul land, and Andrast. But otherwise, the United Kingdom looking very poor in the south. And had we managed to, or had we wanted to push on, right, we could have wiped him out. Probably the thing to do, though, would be to stop exactly where we are. Because if we take either of these settlements, Pynethgelen or Langstrand, we would border with Andrast, which is Rohan. And then we might see, maybe, Rohan's army sending units against these settlements the long way around the coast. Maybe not, because it's very far, but that would be something I don't want to deal with. So taking Moran, again, that's the extreme end of where you'd want to go. And it doesn't look like the Reunited Kingdom has been training anything else anyway, so I really think we could have held on here, even if they had decided to try to take some stuff with that army. Elsewhere in the northeast, Rovanian was doing some stuff. I believe they were moving on Erebos, or maybe that was Khand. But Rovanian has been able to hold on to its territory, a little bit longer than I would expect. Their biggest threat at the moment seems to be the Bjornings, which is very interesting, and typically not what you see. I would think Rune would have moved in and hurt them a lot sooner. But Dale, on the other hand, is doing well. Let's see if they should be at war with the dwarves by now. Yes, as is typical, Dale is at war with the dwarves, allied with the Reunited Kingdom, and also at war with Rune. But they have not actually capitalized on this war with the dwarves. It looks like they have not taken any of the dwarf holds. They managed to grab this from the orcs, or rebel orcs and trolls and wargs at some point. But they've held on to all of their settlements and even expanded beyond the Carnan down into Rathen and Belagant. So Dorwinion was eliminated at some point. I forget when. The dwarves still have Nerig Zigil. And Northrune still exists. Oh, good for them. So Dale has moved over the Carnan, but seems to have stopped here. And they're not at war with Northrune. In fact, Northrune is allied with the dwarves and Rovanian, but at war with the larger chiefdom of Rune. Still, I think the chiefdom of Rune is not doing too well. This is really the aspect of the campaign that I guess surprised me the most, is how poorly Rune has done. It's failed utterly to make any gains against Northrune. They've moved north by one settlement. They've taken Thordram, that's it. I don't think they've ever set hands on Gwaithring. I don't know that they've ever threatened Fornhud. And surprisingly, Northrune has managed to grab and keep Yar Helkar and build it up a little bit too. Now, maybe they didn't build it up, maybe another faction had, but they have it now. And the chiefdom of Rune does not look like anything like they're in the position to retake it soon. And in fact, Northrune looks like they're slightly positioned to make some aggressive moves. Now, they might not be able to capitalize on those, right? Rune might be able to defend its own well enough. They've got some sizable armies in the north there. But they've also, it looks like they're trying to concentrate forces in this area because Khand has been pushing in. So Khand has been doing very well, moving up from Moldin, which Khand starts with, to take Adel and Harondor. And it looks like there's no danger of them losing it with the forces they have here. Now, these may be archers or cav archers, which could do poorly in the auto-resolve, potentially. But I'm just not seeing the concentration of forces, at least in this part of the map. If anything, it looks like Rune is more interested to take Athrad Morn, which Khand will also probably take before they can get over there. Khand has, of course, moved into eastern Mordor, taking Amron Magor, probably early on, as well as Lon Nurnen and Morduath. This is huge. This is one of the victory conditions, I believe, for Khand. And Khand is very different from Harondor. In terms of their victory conditions, Harondor is, in a lot of ways, much easier. I mean, yes, you're surrounded by larger and more aggressive neighbors, potentially, but you've got rivers, right? And you've got fast and hard-hitting cav armies that can strike and do a lot of damage. Khand is more of a skirmish faction, right? You've got mounted skirmishers, your Khandian horse archers, which are very effective, the outriders, but they're not swiftly decisive on the battlefield. I mean, they can certainly keep their distance and wear down the enemy over a long period of time, but especially if you're auto-calcing, you got to watch out. And you don't have any natural borders, right? So it's hard to do decisive strikes. I mean, the advantage of Harondor being surrounded by factions like Gondor and Harad is that those two factions have very wealthy, well-built-up settlements that you can smash and destroy and take over for your own and quickly start making a lot of money through sea trade. Khand has none of that, right? So you're gonna be looking at taking just very, very poor settlements. Like Naur Imloth is a rebel settlement initially, so is Alagos. Those are, I would say, not worth taking in the early campaign. There's basically nothing there. There's no walls on either of them initially. I think you need to take them at some point, and in fact, it would be good to because they count, I think, as homelands, for Khand. But it's a waste of effort to make those the goal. Probably better early on to either hit Rune really hard, put them on the back foot, or make a concentrated drive for Lond Nurnin at the right time. And the trick is early in the campaign, you've got a very strong Adunabar here. So there's all these things you have to manage as Khand, but the AI has somehow managed to do it. And they are not at war, I don't think, with... Let's see. Yeah, they're not at war with Harad. They've got an overlordship of Far Harad. That's right. But that's probably worth very little at this point because they're... I don't imagine they're getting a lot of cash sent their way from Anorlith. Let's put it that way. They have a nominal war with the Adunabar, and they are at war with Rune. So maybe things could shake up there, but I don't see Khand being dislodged anytime soon, especially since I've gone up into Gondor and really weakened the Reunited Kingdom, so they can have a free hand here. Basically, they've even gone as far as Mulsad. So, given enough time, we could see Khand pushing west potentially. I would say they're probably going to continue trying to hold their settlements and focus on their enemies. Maybe trying to move north to take out Rune. And then we would have to see what happens as well with the Far Harad question. If Harad is actually going to destroy them, or if I would continue to try defending them. It looks like in this scenario, Harad is moving in, right? They are sick of my nonsense, and they think they're strong enough to take me out. So they've definitely got some aggression left. Now, it was asked earlier, I was getting some questions from another modder who was asking about passivity in Rome Total War, the original game, not the remaster version. Apparently there are some issues with AI passivity past 60 turns or so in the remaster. And I don't think I've played that long in the remastered version of the game, so I've not observed that myself. But the question is the same thing occurring in the original game? And my answer would be no, based on what I'm seeing here. Like I said, we're about 80 turns in, and the AI is definitely doing stuff. Right, they're sending armies around. They're losing settlements to rebellions sometimes, but they're attempting to take them back. We've seen that even the Reunited Kingdom, which is basically on its last legs, is still attempting to besiege my forts, move its armies towards and ultimately into provinces that I've taken from it. And even Harad, which had seemed fairly passive for a while, because I'd reduced it to something like 2 or 3 provinces, did break out of that pattern. They were able to take Athencaris, and they were able to get enough strength to feel secure enough to move towards Anorlith, and even now, this late in the campaign, with them only having these 3 settlements, to attempt to challenge my rule around Carenbad. So very interesting stuff. And I did notice as well that we've got a tiny outpost of Adunabar here. Actually, I don't want to even say tiny. This is a massive orcish army with Olag High. Wow, trolls, orcs. All right, well, they're the Reunited Kingdom's problem now, so we're not going to have to worry about that. Well, thank you very much for watching the series, folks. Very fun to take a faction that is often seen as really challenging and give them a shot. Harondor, after the first few battles that we won against Harad, we were probably in a pretty strong position, but you never know. Something could happen. The Reunited Kingdom could have come on a bit stronger, and that would have been really difficult for us to manage depending on where we were with our southern campaigns. So it's fun to try to deal with that stuff. And you have the benefit of being guaranteed this very, very wealthy faction if you can get south, get those coastal Umbar settlements soon enough. So what's going to come next? I don't know, but lately I've been really thinking about a North Rune campaign. This is another minor faction that does not get a lot of fancy, flashy stuff. They only have 3 tiers of military development, no specialization buildings, but they do get some interesting units, and they can take advantage of some other mechanics that I find very interesting and promising. So maybe it'll be that. Maybe we'll do something completely different, a medieval campaign or something along those lines. But thanks for watching and sticking with the campaign. A relatively short one, but a successful conclusion to our time as Harondor. Until the next one, everybody, take care.